21 days until the midterms, and Democrats look to be selling, I don't know, something new like 1968 all over again. The more you see the visuals, the tactics, the lack of any tangible policy prescriptions, the more you start to realize that they're embracing the same themes: victim culture, mobs versus jobs, stripping away law and order, hatred for the president, and so on and so on. Here with his thoughts on this and the segment we just talked about, the mass of humanity crushing our border, former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich. He's also author of the New York Times bestseller, Trump's America. Mr. Speaker, it's so great to have you in studio. Now, we know, I know you want to talk about what we just talked about first, so I want to let you hit that, because I think this immigration issue is, if not the most important issue facing the country today in the eyes of the voters, economy and that, one of the top 2 or 3. And Donald Trump has always been ahead of everyone else on this issue, and now we have another scene of lawlessness coming up through Mexico, Honduras. Well,
first of all, I think Kevin McCarthy has offered the best bill and committed to bring it up in December to really do whatever it takes to strengthen the border. But let me just make one key point about all this. This is insanity. No country, imagine it was your home, and people down the street said, you know, I like your home. I think I'm going to come and claim I need refuge. And 6,000 people show up to your home and say, I really hope you'll take care of me. It's crazy. And we ought to adopt a policy that says to the Mexicans, nobody's crossing the border. So if you don't want to stop them coming in from Honduras, they're going to be in Mexico. And I would do whatever it takes to control the border, period. End of story.
Well, Congress has to act. They have to change the asylum laws. They've been, I mean, I'm glad McCarthy's, come along to the gospel here.
Don't necessarily work if you actually control the border, because they don't enter U.S. space.
But they can walk into through a port of entry and claim asylum under current law. Newt, we have to change that whole process.
Well, I'm for changing that, but I'm also for saying that at the ports of entry, if necessary, if Mexico won't cooperate in stopping these people, it'll be amazingly difficult for anything to get through the ports of entry.
That'll get their attention pretty quick.
Yeah, in about 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days. Well, anyway, but you agree this is a big issue and a big opportunity for Republicans.
It's the fate of the United States. You open this country up, Gallup did a world survey, 165 million people would like to come to the U.S.
Yeah.
You couldn't possibly absorb that. Even left-wing cuckoos can't believe.
Well, Americans don't want it. The Gallup poll on this says Americans don't want it. All right, Newt, 1968. One of our mutual friends, Lee Habib, and I were talking the other day, and one of the great guys in radio and one of my old friends, and he said, you see some of the parallels going on here? And it looks like they're going to move right to 1972 and nominate a far-left guy. Of course, George McGovern, 1972. But before that, it was a buildup of lawlessness and a lot of bile and hatred.
I was actually with Lee in Des Moines last night.
Oh, fun.
Look, the hard left, which is now much of the left, is committed to believing that they have the right to bully you, to attack you, to trash you. Antifa has said publicly, which is a hard left group, that they intend to go and destroy offices if they feel like it. And you just had in Portland people being harassed while the police stood there watching. So people need to understand, the left today, the Democrats today, stand for breaking up the whole process. Abraham Lincoln said it brilliantly at Cooper Union when he said, you will rule or you will ruin, talking to Southern slave owners. Well, the modern American left resembles those Southern slave owners in their commitment to rule or ruin. And that's why you see them scratching at the Supreme Court door.
My favorite image of the year.
Yeah, my goal is to ensure that for the next 40 years, the closest they get to a Supreme Court seat is scratching on the door.
Well, don't you think this is a moment for Republicans? They united behind the Kavanaugh confirmation.
Yes.
And look at what happened. The country was motivated, and they're excited. Like, this isn't fair. You know, we wish all the best to all these women, but it's not fair. Basic principle of fairness.
Look, I had a woman come up to me last night who said she'd been a Democrat. She was 75 years old. She had switched parties after Kavanaugh, and every member of her family in 4 states had switched. And she said she was disgusted that this was no longer the party of John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, well, again, we have a situation where America in a midterm cycle usually, you see the party in power lose seats. There have been a few occasions in which that did not happen. When was that?
That's right. Well, it didn't happen in 1934, didn't happen in 1998, didn't happen in 2002. I think this year we're going to gain seats in the Senate for sure. And I think the way the things are developing right now because of Kavanaugh and because people are disgusted with the Democratic Party and a little frightened by it, I think we may actually shock them in the House.
Project Veritas did on one of their undercover sting videos. And this involving, this involving Claire McCaskill and a staffer talking about whether she's really, open-minded on certain issues. Let's watch.
No, you were saying that you think she's more progressive than she lets on.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think she's a lot more open-minded to like alternative routes to things. But she can't be open about that.
Why not?
Because she would completely isolate her, the moderate Republicans.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like we have to lie to get elected.
Essentially.
Well, they do have to lie to get elected. That's why Bredesen is lying in Tennessee. That's why McCaskill's lying. That's why Sinema is lying. That's why Heidkamp is lying. I mean, go down the list. That's why Donnelly is lying. Look, there's a simple test every American can apply to your candidate for Senate. Are you going to vote for Chuck Schumer? If you're going to vote for Chuck Schumer, you're a liberal, period. End of story. Including, by the way, Manchin. People in West Virginia ought to say to Manchin, if you honestly believe what you claim you believe, how come you're not voting for McConnell?
Well, and also Manchin, voted for the disastrous Obamacare, which was a complete disaster.
This whole notion of all these folks run back home, they say, I'm really not the person you thought I was in Washington, and I didn't mean to do it, and please elect me again. They just ought to say to them straight out, if you're going to vote for Schumer, you are a left-winger, you're putting left-wingers in power, and therefore I have to vote against you.
Yeah, and then we have these people like in the 7th District of Virginia, Dave Bratt, of course, unseated Eric Cantor, one of the big signs of this populist revolution coming. When that happened, I mean, that's a tight race. That could go either way. And I'm looking at the Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia. You can't choose the Democrats here. I mean, that's going to take your state backward. You want to go forward. So Dave Bratt and so many people like him are supporting Trump. This is why the economy is growing. This is why we're seeing optimism growing.
Well, that's why the line you used last week, that the choice is jobs or mobs, is real. I mean, let's be clear. We have the lowest black unemployment in history. We have the lowest Latino unemployment in history. We have the largest number of unfilled jobs in history. The economy is growing. And the fact is, the Democrats promised to throw all of that away based on their socialist ideology.
And the left still thinks that devoting hours of coverage to Michael Avenatti and Stormy Daniels, and the president sent a tweet out in a phrase, which I don't think he should have done, but they think the voters are going to turn out because of a tweet. They still don't get it, Newt.
No, they don't get it, but that people ought to look at this stuff and say to yourself, do you want a party which has been delivering results for the last 2 years, or do you want a party dedicated to resistance? Because that's really what the choice is. And I think that the average American is going to look at what's happening, and I think they're going to conclude that, in fact, the Republicans have been doing a pretty darn good job, and the Democrats are, frankly, kind of scary.
Results versus resistance. Newt Gingrich, we love having you in studio. Thanks so much. And the Democrats